You guys have no idea. I couldn't be more hype. You might not believe me, but I've been waiting for this show right here for nearly 2 fucking years. And judging from what I'm seeing right now, it looks to be living up.
Number 2, Himote House. Exquisite 3D CGI trash
Yes.
to watch.
So, what is Himote House? I'm so glad you asked. Himote House is an anime created by the one and only Ichi Dante, a genius, visionary, the man behind the Guda Guda Fairies and Tesugure Bukatsumono, and also all this other weird shit I don't even want to get into, okay? Before we can understand Himote House, we need to quickly talk about Japanese variety shows. A mainstay of Japanese primetime TV, variety shows are fast-paced, spastic, star-studded, and they cover a wide array of different material. From a show about public pranks, to interviewing people about whatever weird shit they do for a living, to stupid-ass game shows about climbing up slippery stairs, or idols touching an octopus. And this genius man we're talking about today is a product of this industry. Ichi Dante has a surprisingly extensive history working at various positions in it, and he continues to look up to several comedians in the industry. He was born, raised in, and continues to be inspired by this style of television. And I totally get why some people wouldn't like the show, but what I don't understand is how you can watch Himote House and think it's a generic slice of life comedy, when most of the foundation is altered, and many situations are just not written from a conventional standpoint. It's easy to see the influence in Ichi Dante's most successful show, Tesugure Bukatsumono. In this anime, the main characters are part of the Tesugure Club, and every episode begins with an extended segment that helps to establish and reinforce the personalities of the characters and situations that could be described as contributing to the story or lore, much like any other anime. Then when the characters sit down to do their club activities, things suddenly change.
グズグズな感じで、それが音にまで乗っちゃってグングンみたいな。やばそう。聞かみたいですね。そうね。
Are they talking? That's right. Voice actresses are given a topic, and then they each take turns presenting a spin on that topic that they can talk and make stupid jokes about while trying to stay in character, and it's phenomenal. It puts a very fresh spin on an anime genre that's so easy to become jaded to. It has that necessary meta self-awareness, and in many ways is super forward-thinking in the sense that it's a slice-of-life anime that's going for a soothing, relaxed aesthetic that takes inspiration from podcasts more so than anything else. Now you might not have known this, because everyone was raging about Tatsuki's firing from the Kimono Friends team, but ironically enough, Ichi Dante, having worked with Tatsuki before, suffered a very similar fate 2 years prior, where he deliberately resigned from his position as the director of the Tesugure series because he was becoming increasingly displeased with his higher-ups, all as the series simultaneously became more popular and they were becoming more controlling of the IP. So he went and made his own studio, Bouncy, and he's finally back. This is the first anime he's been involved with since the Tesugure spin-off. We don't talk about that one. So does Himote House live up to the hype? Okay, slow down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first go over what Himote House actually is and what it's trying to do. Let's judge it on its own merits. So the premise for the show is that there's this group of girls living together in this house managed by these 3 sisters, and they just kind of hang out together. But there is a main driving force, that is, they all want to become popular. And it's revealed at the end of the first episode they all have a weird power of some sort. But they're all powers that don't exactly have any practical application to everyday life and is like detrimental to their goals at like every step. So that's the main conceit of most situations in the story. For instance, like there's this girl Kokoro and she has the ability to read minds, but because of this she developed a hatred of men because whenever she's around them all she sees is how they're staring at or thinking about her body. This feels like an anime. Way more than anything this man's ever done. However, presumably to make up for this, even in the scripted sections, it does feel somewhat off the wall and eccentric in an Ichi Dante variety show weird sort of way. Sometimes it gets even more frantic than some of the craziest conversations the seiyus have had, like this part in episode 3, and it kinda works. I'm still not sure if I enjoy Ichi Dante's scripted jokes as much, but the show actually has something over pretty much everything he's worked on, and that's that the characters are actually pretty decent. I think all of them work together well and are likable individually. They're unique, colorful characters at least. So it's interesting because one of the reasons I love Tesagure so much is that it feels like the voice actresses take simple characters and make them more likable. Whereas in Himote House, I already like the characters, and I also don't feel like there's that much more to learn about them. So the unscripted sections here don't serve the same function at all, and feel more like extra outtakes to give the production more personality, rather than central to the eccentricities of the show itself. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily better or worse, just that it's different. It is true that crafting a narrative around ad-libbed conversations week by week would be difficult. This structure that he came up with makes the most sense in the goal of making a sensibly normal anime without compromising his own style too much. So is it a hit? Well, if I'm perfectly honest, I was actually a little disappointed by the show. I would definitely say it isn't his best work. With regards to the scripted narrative, to me at least, it sort of begs the question of why? Because many scenes in the show play out very similarly to the ad-libbed stuff in Ichi Dante's other shows, Tesagure specifically. Sometimes it's almost like an interpolation of specific bits from his other works, like using them as reference material almost. And again, I think the characters are fun, but some of the charm is lost in the process of these conversations merely by virtue of them being more artificial. And I overall think the show actually suffers from having more of an emphasis on the plot, because there's really not that much of it. Thinking about it more, Tesagure works precisely because it basically doesn't have a plot, and the parts that are scripted are still focused on the same general idea of like talking about random stuff. So I think Himote House feels a bit more scattered and not really to its benefit, because it's still kind of going for a similar thing as Tesagure, just dressing it up a bit. I do appreciate the multi-layered concept of the powers and how they clash with the girls' motivations and personalities, and it's possible that what was considered was that the setup was too complex and would have made a quality consistency more difficult if there wasn't a script, so I understand the decision on that level. But I think it would have been really entertaining to at least see some bits where the voice actresses try to think of how to use their characters' powers in certain situations, and they're given some details, or some kind of gimmick akin to that to take advantage of what makes Ichi Dante's anime special even just a little bit more. It's not that big of a deal, honestly. What concerns me more is I think the writing falls a bit flat sometimes. Sometimes I dig the idea of a scene. In episode 11, the girls decide to take a bath together. Fan service shots roll by. The actresses put on their ASMR voices, and they discuss the intricacies of cryptocurrency. And this is pretty epic funny, but after a while the girls go in the bath and the joke just gets dragged way too long, and there ends up being too much actual pointless fan service that's just weird, and it quickly loses that initial impact, and it doesn't go on long enough to be funny again. And keep in mind, if you think I'm just giving like one example and judging the whole show based on it, this is possibly like one of the best scenes in the show. Many scenes don't even pass the bare minimum of having a funny concept. Like this baseball skit, which is just like, why? And since many episodes are basically just one skit, because they usually drag on a single skit for the entirety of an episode, it can make or break entire episodes. The first episode in particular feels really messy, but the show generally cuts corners to kind of a detrimental extent, and also in areas that were previously overcome in Ichi Dante's other shows. For instance, this part in episode 2 where the girls decide to do blind dates, the men are represented as shadows, but it doesn't work well, and just comes off as super lazy, and just it kind of makes the whole scene fall flat. It would have been better to just have a default male model. They could have just reused this default male model throughout the whole show or something, and it could have been a gag or something in itself. This is what was basically done in Tesagure with this girl, who was there to just like be there as like people so that the girls could do more stuff without having to involve like more characters. Even despite all this, I still enjoyed the various ad-libbed skits. They're by far the best parts of the show, And with regards to the ending section ones, I actually wouldn't mind seeing something like this in every slice of life show. And I think if Ichi Dante ever makes it big and people start noticing him, we're gonna see quite a few imitators of this. I think this is something that could really catch on. Quote me on this in the future. So yeah, I don't have any problems with the ad-lib stuff. It's just as good, if not better, than many of his other shows. But it's the reduced focus and scatter shot placement that just kind of makes me want to rewatch Tessugure, where they have more of a clear purpose. Overall, I don't think there's a ton wrong with Himote House. It's probably his most cohesive and complete anime. I just kind of happen to not find most of it that funny, so it's hard for me to give it a strong recommendation. But I definitely encourage you to check out Ichi Dante's other work if you at least found the ending sections or episode 10 entertaining. It's easily the best episode. I think something that anime in general can really improve on is having more of a variety of influences to pull from. And Ichi Dante is one of the few people in the industry actively pushing a fresh perspective on the medium. I understand that this show occupies an obscure niche in the anime landscape, and it's very likely he knows this and understands the problems that come along with that, and he's trying to figure out how to navigate from here to the future. I hope that Ichi Dante finds his breakout hit that everyone watches, like Tatsuki, and I hope this is just a first step in crafting that.